Hello, I'm Christine Judge and I work for Cornwall Music Service Trust. Alongside my classroom and instrumental teaching, I deliver the Primary Engagement music role for Cornwall Music Education Hub in West Cornwall. So in this session, we're going to have a look at some basic composition using pitched notation, and we're going to be working with scales or with modes. There's lots of different types of scales, but they really colour the mood of a piece of music. And I know when we hear the word scale, we tend to associate it with exams and tests, but it's not all about that. It's about taking a set of notes and using that set of notes to make music with. A scale is normally played in ascending and then descending order, starting and finishing on the same note. It can have any number of notes depending on the type of tradition that you are using, but major and minor scales normally have 8 notes in. You may have also come across the pentatonic scale, which has, not surprisingly, 5 notes in. I'm going to show you some examples of some scales that we might use in this project. So the first one I'm going to play for you is the C major scale. It starts and finishes on C. And you can play this on your xylophones or on chime bars that you've got at school. You can also play a minor scale. I'm using the melodic minor scale because I think you're more likely to have these notes available to you at school. So I am starting and finishing on a D. And instead of the B, I have taken my B off and put a B flat on instead. So that makes it into a minor scale. What I'm actually doing is lowering the 6th note, making the pitch sound lower. So here goes the D minor scale, D melodic minor. And then a lovely one to start with, particularly with younger children, is the pentatonic scale. And that just uses 5 notes. There are lots of different types of pentatonic scale, but for this one today, we are going to use C, D, E, G and A. And all of those scales are brilliant for improvising with. So now it's time to get down to the business of actually creating some music. We're going to be improvising and experimenting using one of the scales. I've been doing Egyptians with some of my children as their topic just recently, so we've taken the minor scale to use because I think it goes well with the Egyptian topic. Major scales tend to sound, on the whole, happier, and minor scales tend to have a more serious note to them. The pentatonic scale, again, can sound quite jolly and happy, but you can choose scales to suit yourself. You could even make up your own set of notes. It doesn't have to be one of the ones that we've used today. We're going to start and finish our improvisation using the home note, and the home note in my D minor scale is D. I'm just going to move this down a bit so that you can see my xylophone. So my home note here is D, and I'm using my minor set of notes. I've got the B flat in place on my xylophone instead of the B natural, and I can use anything between D and D. To begin with, I would limit the amount of notes that your children are experimenting with so that it's not too over-facing for them. And I'm going to start by using a set of words that are associated with our topic. So we're taking the words building a pyramid. We're going to have 4 beat gaps in between each one. And I'm just going to encourage my children to get used to playing that on the home note first of all, which is, we know, is D. So I've got building a pyramid. 1, 2, 3, 4. Building a pyramid. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here is what that rhythm looks like, notated as well. So you can see I've got a crotchet, I've got 2 quavers, 2 more quavers, and another crotchet. And I'm also going to be showing my children what that looks like when it's notated with pitch notation as well. And that's all drawn showing the note D, which is my home note. After that, I'm going to be encouraging my pupils to see if they can improvise using more than 1 note this time. But we're going to stick with just using the same rhythm of building a pyramid. And again, I'm going to be keeping a 4 beat gap in between. You could do this as a whole class, or you could do it as groups. You know your children best, you'll know what will work first time for them. So I'm going to use just 4 notes, or really only 3, because I'm going to be returning to my home note each time, which as we know is D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next stage now is to begin to develop a whole tune, and again this could be in groups or it could be individually. Please encourage your children who learn instruments to use those as well. So if you've got a violinist or a trumpeter or a clarinet player in your class, encourage them to use that instrument. If they only know a couple of notes, it doesn't matter. Their tune can have just those 2 notes in, or it might be that if they're playing in the group, they're taking it in turns to play some of the notes. So this time we're going to not just use only one rhythm, we're going to take a set of rhythms. It could be a set of words that go with your topic, or it could just be that the children notate using the values that you've already shown them. So here's an example. I'm using, again, just crotchets and quavers, and for each of the bars of music, each of the sets of patterns of 4 beats, I've chosen a different letter name. So I'm using a D, an A, an E, and a D, and I can play through that whole tune. I'm just going to move my camera down again so that you can see and hear what I'm going to play for you. I'm starting and finishing on my home note, which is important, which is my D. And you may have noticed that my first and last bar of music was the same, which gives it a nice sense of completion. Wherever possible, I do think it's good to encourage the children to look at pitch notation as well as rhythmic notation, particularly as you get into later key stage 2. So here is what the tune that you just heard looks like with pitched notation. If you want to take this on a stage further, it could be that you don't just play 1 note per bar now, so you might encourage the children to use a full range of notes, particularly if they play an instrument well or if they are especially able. If you're working on a project for quite a long time, you may get many of your class to this stage. So here is an example of using the D minor scale. Again, I'm focusing on my Egyptians topic, and this time I'm using a much wider range of notes. I am going to start and finish on my home note of D. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you are creating a tune that has many more notes in it and developing it further, it's important to think about using mostly steps, that's notes that are right next to each other, some leaps, that's notes that are further away from each other, and some repeated notes. That will help to create a successful melody. I hope that that's been useful for you. Thank you for watching.